From rock bottom to the bright lights, this is where redemption meets hustle. CEOs, entrepreneurs, creators, and comeback stories. This is real inspiration. Welcome to the GITT Up Podcast with your host, Adam Larkin. It's not just a show, it's a movement. Now let's get it. Today's guest is someone who has put in the work, personally, professionally, statewide, to change the way Kentucky understands recovery. Gene Detherage Jr. is a lifelong Kentuckian from Knox County who's been in long-term recovery since 2014. He's not just lived it, he's helped rebuild the systems around it. Gene serves as recovery support specialist with the Bluegrass Area Development District, formerly led the Kentucky Recovery Housing Network Advisory Board, and now serves as advocacy chair for the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. His help launched Kentucky's Recovery Ready Communities initiative alongside former Governor Ernie Fletcher to expand rural recovery housing, contributed to major pieces of legislation like House Bill 248 and 462, and continues to push for policies that protect, empower, and elevate people in recovery. With a master's in public administration and over a decade of service to Appalachian communities, Gene represents the perfect blend of lived experience, leadership, and heart. Gene, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me, Adam. I appreciate being here.
Yes, sir. So, where are you from originally, and what was it like growing up in Knox County?
Well, I actually grew up in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. I was born in Lexington. We lived there till I was about 5. And then my mom's dad bought a farm out in Harrodsburg, and we moved out there. And, it was a nice place to grow up. And I lived there through middle school, and then I went to high school down in Knox County. But my father's side of the family, like they're 6 generations, Knox County, Kentucky. Back to the early 1800s.
Oh, nice. Old school.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Appalachia, Kentucky as a kid? Like, what stands out to you most about that time in your life?
Man, there's
it's a world of difference from like New York, like where I'm from.
Oh yeah, 100%. I tell people anymore when I get to travel, I tell them I'm a country mouse, but there's several things that stand out, man. It's funny. Knox County, Kentucky. There were parts of that community that legitimately didn't have like consistent electricity or even indoor plumbing until up into the 60s and the 70s, and all that's an interesting story. But there's several things. The natural beauty stands out. Our family home was on the backside of Barberville, Kentucky, and it was up on a hill about halfway up the mountain. And across from us was a piece of property called Pickard Farm. It was beautiful. They dug a couple lakes into it, and then just beyond it was the Cumberland River. But it was a particularly special place in the Cumberland River. So there's only 2 or 3 rivers in the world that have a meander so extreme that, after they turn, they end up flowing the rest of their course in the opposite direction from where they started. And that bend in the Cumberland River was right in front of our house. So, I always think of it as a place where, God just licked his thumb and kind of carved out a little spot. It's real pretty. And, between that and Harrodsburg, because Harrodsburg was actually the first permanent settlement in Kentucky, right there in the middle of town. They got old Fort Harrod State Park, and, they've got a replica of the fort and all the history and stuff. Well, same thing with our house in Barberville. It was right down the road from Dr. Thomas Walker State Park, and they had a replica of his cabin. And so he was like the first English settler that tried to build a home there in Appalachia's, like way back, like late 1600s, early 1700s, even before the founding of the United States. So I don't know. I've always kind of reflected on that. Like the 2 main places I grew up had that deep tie to kind of the founding of Kentucky, and I've just always felt in my heart, kind of being a part of that story, being that lifelong Kentuckian, that 6th generation Appalachian. And, this is probably worth fact checking, but like my experience, I graduated high school in 2008. So, I was a freshman in '05 in the heart of Appalachia, right at the kickoff of the opioid epidemic, back when it was still prescription pills. And I remember seeing so many of my classmates, ending up like starting their journey with addiction. And, so was I. But, I think something like my graduating class was 196 people. And
wow.
I think like something like half of them have either died or been incarcerated at some point, almost always in a direct relationship with substance use disorders.
Yeah, I was joking. Like I didn't grow up in New York City. I grew up in upstate New York. So it's like a couple hours from the city. So it's like you get the whole New York City vibe and you go down there and you're like, this is awesome, but I don't want to live here. Yeah. So it's like I get the best of both worlds. I get to return to kind of like a Appalachia deal. So they got Saratoga Springs where I'm from. They got the Saratoga racetrack. So it's kind of like Lexington. Yeah. But like a big summer touristy town. Yeah. And then you got like Lake George and the Adirondack Mountains like 20 miles north. Vermont's right to the right. So it's kind of the same geography with actually like bigger mountains, lakes, and streams, which you don't think of in New York.
Well, no, that's probably why we, hit it off, so quickly, because like, the Appalachian Mountain Range stretches from, the official.
It's like Maine to Georgia?
Yeah, like the actual range, it cuts that whole swath, like all down through the country. Right. And so, and as I've met people from other states, there are still some of those cultural similarities. I mean, I'm very biased, but I mean, I think people from Appalachia or grew up in or around Appalachia or, had Appalachian people in their life. I think there's a degree of authenticity that you get from those kind of folks that is sometimes lost.
And good, loyal, like God-fearing, like just good part of the country, good people, loyal people. And, I've traveled all over, man. And some of the best people I've ever met is in Kentucky. That's where I got sober, got into long-term recovery, and, finally decided to do something different.
Down in London, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and London was the big town when I was in high school. If you wanted to go shopping, you went to London. Now, if you really wanted to go shopping, you went all the way up to Lexington. But, before Corbin, like, added their movie theater, that was our closest movie theater, was London, Kentucky. So, I mean, that stretch along 25E, Middlesboro, Pineville, Barberville, Corbin, London, I mean, that was my stomping ground growing up.
And London's like the closest highway. So I realized this the more because our center's down in Harlan, the Fourth Dimension Treatment Center that Jen's down there right now. And it's a hike, like the closest highway is London.
Have you?
Or like Tazewell or, like towards Knoxville.
Yeah, because like from Harlan, you're going to cut, depending on which part of the county you're in, you're going to cut an hour probably over to 25 and then come up 25 to get back to Corbin or London to access 75. Have you ever?
It's about an hour and 25 minutes from exit 38 I-75 to downtown Harlan.
Yep, it's no joke. Have you? I wish I could remember the name of the road. There's one way you can come into Harlan. You come in on the top of the mountain, and like it does a curve like this. But before you start coming back down, like the view is just incredible because like you can see Harlan down there, but it's like a mile and a half away and like looking itty bitty. I gotta figure out I'll figure out the name of that road and tell you next time you're out there.
I'm sure she knows when she watches this.
Oh yeah.
So what was your you're in long-term recovery like me. What was your worst moment in addiction?
My worst. I mean, there were a lot of bad moments that I could point to, like traditional suffering, I guess, getting punched in the face or, ending up incarcerated and waking up there and, having to deal with those emotions. But, truly the worst period for me, it kind of stretched out about 3 months, but I always articulate it in this one particular day. So I was living in Louisville and I'd rented an apartment that was smaller than the studio that we're in right now. I mean, it was like a closet size.
Like an
room.
efficiency.
Not even an efficiency, dude. So like this was one of those like classic manor houses in old Louisville that somebody had like chopped up into like as many rooms.
Like boarding homes or
Yeah. I mean, they collected the rent in cash on a weekly basis. Like, and if you didn't do that, you couldn't stay. I mean, this was
no alternative forms of payment.
No. No checks. Cash only. And man, like I had a twin bed in there, like an old school like tube television and like a mini fridge. And the place was infested with bed bugs. I mean, it was awful. I didn't care because like I was in the madness. But I woke up one day and I reached from my bed to the mini fridge because like I got long old orangutan arms, but you know, I could reach from that bed to the mini fridge and pull out like a double deuce. And I started my day that way one day. And I had this thought ring super clearly in my mind. And it was, one of three things is going to happen to you, Gene. Either you're finally going to get up the courage and you're going to jump off that walking bridge into the river and just end it. Or two, you're going to get into either a car accident or a fight or some kind of violent altercation and like you're going to die or somebody's going to kill you. Or three, and this would have been the worst of all, you're going to continue to exist like this for another 20 years. And when that thought ran through my mind, I knew that was the absolute written in stone, unequivocal truth of my existence. That was absolutely my fate.
It's like Moses etched in the 10 Commandments. Like, this is exactly what's going to happen if I don't do something different.
100%. And like I had watched my father go through that option number 3. You know, everybody loved my daddy. I'm named after him. I'm Gene Berry Jr. He was Gene Berry Sr. And, you know, he was also named after, like, a big line of our great-grandfathers who were, like, Greenberry, like green like the color and B-E-R-Y, old country names. But, you know, growing up, especially in high school, you know, I watched him go through the late stages of alcoholism, you know, from a fifth a day to a half gallon a day. Plus, you know, he had a doctor that, you know, would give him these massive scripts of Loratab and Xanax, you know, those sedatives to stop the shakes. And he died at 46 when I was 19. Had a heart attack, you know, as a direct result of alcoholism, and, you know, died by himself in our family home there in Barberville. And so, like, that's what I was envisioning in that moment. And I already had a son at the time. My oldest son had already been born. And, like, I just knew, man. I just knew in my bones, like, that one of those 3 things was going to happen. But, like, knowing my luck, it was probably going to be the third. Like, I would continue to exist like a cancer or an acid, just eroding away the lives of everybody around me, including my son, until, you know, finally my body just shut down.
Yeah, and it's like when we're in that state of mind, like the worst possible outcome is existing like that for another 3 or 4 decades somehow.
Yeah.
I remember those moments, man.
Yep. So that was, I would say that, like, that was my worst moment, is when, like, I knew what the reality was. Because, like, the drugs and the alcohol, like, they didn't make that reality disappear anymore, man.
So how long were you in this, like, existence before, like, it began to shift to where you did something different? Like, were you, like, a teenager until you were, what, like 30?
Oh, man.
Or, like, 20, late 20s, 30?
I used for the first time when I was 15 years old, and this is a little bit of a funny story. So, like, and you'll remember this too. Like, peer pressure. That was what you had to watch out for, right? Watch out for the peer pressure. So me, 15 years old, like my thinking was, well, if I find somebody who can give me something to try, well, then I've avoided peer pressure, and so I'm not going to fall victim to it. And me and a couple other people, we went to that park I was talking about, Thomas Walker State Park, and I tried substances for the first time. And when the feeling hit me, man, it was because, like, this is a perfect question because, like, this is a perfect bookend. Like, this is how it started, and I just explained how it ended. When that feeling hit me, man, for the first time in, like, my conscious life, I was completely okay with who I was and who you were and, like, all the things going on in the world. Like, perfect peace and ease, man.
Found something that changed the way you felt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had at the time, I had the clearest thought in my mind that I'd ever had in my life. And I just said to myself, I said, I will never be without this again. And I dedicated everything to that idea for the next decade, because that was at 15. And then that other moment I was describing to you was at about 24. But, like,
oh, nice.
The dark years, I mean, the really dark years, I mean, they lasted for about 2 years. Like, it was Gucci all through high school. I mean, it was a small town, came from a decent family, everybody, my grandmother taught school there for 34 years. My grandfather had helped build, like, their first hospital. I had a first cousin who was an elected official. And so, like, in high school, like, everybody just kind of looked the other way, I guess, and hoped that it would resolve itself. But when I went to college, like, I got arrested for the first time my first month in college. And then again and again and again and again. And, it really started to spiral down quick, which I'm super grateful for today.
Right.
Like, I'm really glad that it got bad. I'm glad that the suffering became so great that I was forced to confront the reality of my existence, right?
Exactly. Thank God for that. Man, I wish I would have got it younger. Thank God I did finally, but I was 37. So I was in the madness from, like, I had those moments like you were talking about at 15, at like 13, but I got really bad at like 19 when I got in a car accident. Yeah. Because we're pretty close to the same age. And that's when Purdue Pharmaceutical in 2001 was pumping non-addictive oxys and painkillers as non-addictive substances. Yeah. So
safe and effective.
By the time I left, with a compound fracture and a fatal car accident, my best friend died. I ended up on a morphine drip in the hospital at 19, and I'm like, I was a snowboarder, a boxer, played basketball, as an athlete, just got into college, and, you never think, like, hey, life's going great. I'm going to wake up one day and be a drug addict.
No.
Like, it wasn't in the cards. I was like, wait a second, man. Bro, it took me till 37 to snap out of it. It was like an 18-year run.
Hey, man, but you made it out.
Yeah. Praise God.
So many of our brothers and sisters don't escape.
Yeah.
And you know that, man.
Yeah. That's why we go hard with what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Because, like,
if we don't recover out loud, others are going to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And, dude, I got, at first I'm like, well, that's cliche, that's stupid. But I got people reaching out to me from, like, different countries that are watching content are like, yo, that, I needed to hear that. 100%. And I'm like, a lot of the times I'll go look at, like, my spiritual memes or motivational memes and go look at them, and I'm like, whew, I needed that today more than anybody that I posted it for. So it's like, it keeps me in check. It's like, don't say you're going to do this and then do this. Like, have integrity and live up to what you're posting.
Audio match the video.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally.
Walk show, not a talk show.
Yeah. That's why we got Coop. Audio's going to match the video on this, baby. And it's going to sound good.
Good stuff.
So, been in long-term recovery since 2014. What's been the most important factor in sustaining it? Like, for me, I do prayer, meditation, breath work, grounding, the gym, just got, like, my routines. And I notice, obviously that's why I started GITT, right? Mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, live your best life. And it's like, when I miss some of these, I'm off kilt, like, I may be in check with my diet, and, I'll feel good mentally because I'm in check with my diet and hitting the gym and stuff, but if I'm off spiritually, then I'm off the beam, so I'm missing stuff, and it's like, I I got to keep it honed.
No, I mean that golden triangle is key. For me, it was like a real journey, man. So like I was a shambles when I got to the Moorhead Inspiration Center in 2014, man. I remember the guy that came and picked me up from the detention center, which was wild because like I had seen this guy as a program participant. Dude's name is Jade. Shout out to you, Big Jade. Keep kicking them possums, baby. This guy picked me up. I'd known him a couple years prior when like he was going through the program. But like, even though like I was ready and like wanted to like change my life, when he picked me up, like everything in me wanted to like hit my knees and beg with tears in my eye for him to like take me and get one more drink because like I knew in my bones that like the minute I walked in there, it was over. And I lived there for 13 months, man. And, for me, it was a program based on the 12 steps. And so while we lived there, like I did all those. And then I did them again after I left. And that second time, man, so in that recovery modality, there's one called the 5th step where like after you've taken like your fearless and searching moral inventory, you have a long form conversation with somebody about like all your resentments, all your fears, all the harms that you've caused others. And then you're supposed to go back and like have an hour of meditation. So I lived in another small apartment, slightly bigger than Bedbug Death Trap. And
Moving on up.
Much cleaner. And I remember like I got like a Walmart gift card from somebody and I like decked it out. It was the first place like that I ever felt like was mine. It felt special. But I came back there and I'm laying in my bed and I have that hour of meditation. And, like God said something to me during the hour of meditation. And it wasn't like profound or complex. I mean, it was basically just the phrase, grow where you're planted. And like, since that moment, like, I've just tried to lean in and live into that ever since. And so like, for me, man, the thing that motivates me more than anything, like I practice prayer and meditation. I don't do a great job, but I do try and moderately take care of my physical health, physical, spiritual, mental, and like I'm with people all the time. So I feel like my mental health is pretty good. I work too much, but other than that, but yeah, more than anything, man, like I'm always engaged in something with people that is aimed at something that is productive and good for society. Sometimes it has like a monetary aspect, but more often than not, it's just doing the next right thing because it's the next right thing. And so like being engaged with those people, being empowered and filled up by the God of my understanding to, be this instrument that he can use in the world to try and carve out a pathway and a means, whether that's a policy, a program, or a plan, to set more people free. Like, I'm just jazzed every day, man.
Service work.
Yeah. Like, I've somehow turned like my whole life, like my whole being is like service work. Like sometimes I do, like I have to be careful with that though, because like several things that I do, like I draw a salary or they bring like, personal prestige or grandeur or whatever, to me personally. So like I also, lately what it's been, because like I was getting too big for my britches. So like at my home group, like I've started forcing myself to like stay behind and like be one of the people that mops the floor.
Nice.
Like
Go back to old school, like making the coffee, taking out the trash.
But it's not out of virtue, bro. Like my head was swelling me out, you know, like it was.
But knowing that and acting on that's huge, because we definitely didn't used to have that, right? So it's like you said, you know, we get certain places. Like I never thought I'd have the platforms I have today, or, you know, like God's blessing me tremendously. So it's like, it's cool just hanging out, shooting, you know, filming a podcast and whatnot. Like I do it anyways. But if it blows up and we're helping somebody simultaneously, you know, thank God. Like I'm gonna pray for that, but I'm also gonna put the consistency and the action into making it happen, right?
Chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, we're gonna be throwing these podcasts out weekly, no matter what happens. One a week, never miss a beat.
I love it.
You know, eventually we'll get there. Hopefully we'll be filming 2 a week, and then just keep increasing it.
And like, and I love this, you know, in preparing for today, you know, you were telling me like, you know, the theme that you've got going for it. And I really appreciate getting to come on as a guest. Sincerely, I do. But, you know, one of the things that I love about recovery is like people like us, we have a lot in common with like other very successful leaders and very successful people that drive that sheer grit. I mean, like, I wish more people understood that, like, when you are suffering in like active addiction or alcoholism, you're not having a good time. Right. Like you're not having fun, man. Like you are in the crucible of suffering. And so like to be able to survive that and then come back out of it and like go into like doing something productive, like, you know, that's on par with like, you know, like stuff like Henry Ford did or like Bezos or Musk. Like the level of just like determination and raw humanity that like you have to possess to like go through it is a thing. But
well, and then also realize going through it, maybe God spared you for that reason to help others get out of it. So it's like, I love that post, and I even changed the GITT in it to GITT. And I was like, God pulled you out of the fire so you could get back in and pull more people out. Yeah. And I'm like, that's real, man.
No, it is.
Because I remember being in like the depths of hell, like just broken, you know, desperate, anxiety ridden, taking stuff for anxiety that ironically causes more anxiety. Oh. And it's like not sleeping, just, you know, causing harm to everybody else around me, and just not ever going to sleep. And, you know, like I did something good today. Yeah.
No peace. Everybody hates you.
Yeah.
You hate you.
You're putting out nothing but negative, bad energy into the world. Yeah. That's why I go so hard with positivity, motivation, inspiration, because it's like, it's a perspective. It's just as easy to wake up like life's good. I got a roof over my head. I got food. I got a job. You know, just simple things to be grateful for. Yeah. That ironically, you travel the world a lot of third world countries. Our homeless population is destroying it on a worldwide level compared to some of these countries, because now you're walking 40 miles to hope you get a well that isn't polluted, to even have drinking water. Yeah. Or like, you know, a dictator, like just straight killing people. Yeah. So it's, people don't realize, you know, like we're super fortunate. We need to be grateful.
Yeah. There's a lot of gnarly stuff out there, man. Yeah. And I agree with you. I still believe in my heart of hearts, like we have major problems that we need to deal with here in the States. Like I don't think anybody rational could say that we don't. But and I think this is like especially true of like our generation. And like I don't want to say I get aggravated about it, but that would be a lie. I do get kind of aggravated about it because I meet so many people like our age, right? And like I think about my own experience, and like I was literally homeless like 11 years ago. I still had family that would have taken me in, but nobody was happy about it. So like, and I didn't have any money. You know, I had this criminal record, this terrible drinking and drugging problem, and like, and also like my character was bad. I was not a good person. And now it's like 11 years later, and like you're another example of this, and like so many other people that we know, you know, like turning it around, like being productive, working with other people, building things, creating things, trying to manifest, positive progress in the world. And then meanwhile, I see so many people in our age cohort that like their whole existence revolves around this idea that like their life sucks, everything sucks, and you shouldn't even try because there's no hope for the future because the system's so broken or whatever. And like I know those problems are real. Like I have student debt too. Like I have struggled dealing with inflation. Like I have kids. Like things aren't perfect, but like you can do something. Like you can be a part of a world that you want to be a part of. And like I think the most terrifying thing is for people, and at least this is what it was for me, right? One of the hardest things about getting sober was facing the fact and the reality that I was 100% responsible. Right.
Accountability.
I'm 100% responsible for my past, for my present, for my future. And when you accept 100% responsibility, you lose the luxury of blame. And I think a lot of people don't ever want to deal with that personally because it's hard.
That's good, bro. So if you don't like where you're at, change the destination.
Absolutely.
Like for real, man, especially today, like, you got a master's degree. We're going to talk about that. I just got accepted in an MBA program. So there's my debt that's going up that we're talking about, but we're making moves in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can do anything you want, but you can also learn anything not going to school too. So I'm not going to lie. I just got my BA because of our People and Bright Leadership and Organizational Leadership with a minor in marketing.
100%.
And I learned 50 times more doing stuff like this, actually starting my clothing company. I'm like, all right, I'm CEO of a company. Now I got to learn how to be that guy.
Yeah.
Spending a few years being that guy, creating content, just boots on the ground, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Rush, Photoshop, Illustrator, just learn softwares, put out videos. It's like if I had the perfect plan, the 5-year plan, wrote it all out, and then waited 5 years for that plan,
no.
I'm going to start now, roll with everything I'm doing, and then 5 years later, it's like
the willingness to fail, the willingness to look stupid. Like at this point, like I've had a couple people along the way kind of like ask me to like help mentor them, which is like mind blowing to me. It's like, what do you mean? But and that's like one of the first things like I talk to them about. Like you have to be willing to look stupid.
Right.
You have to be willing to fail. I try and teach my kids this too. Like, perfection's a myth in everything and anything. And like, you have to forgive me because I want to dig in on a couple of these things because I've got the opportunity, right? I think that college is good. I value the experience that I got from most of my professors. I enjoy learning. I enjoyed the time that I got to dedicate to, becoming more learned, right? But at the same time, there's like this dark, horrific reality, and there's such a parallel with it, especially in like treatment and recovery these days. But like, it got turned into a commodity, right? Like, especially for our generation, like you were basically told, like, if you didn't go to college, like you were going to be a stupid loser the rest of your life. No pretty girl's going to want to marry you. You won't own a home. You'll never retire. Like you'll be a loser.
As they're shuffling us through this school system that teaches you nothing about credit, finance, Roths, 401ks, investments, high interest savings, houses, actual like assets.
Well, and it got commodified, right? Like, I'm not a student. I'm a fixed dollar asset for this institution to move through. And so like as long as I move through it, they can count on that revenue. And like I'm an unabashed like capitalist, right? Like I really am. But I also believe that the proper role and function of government is to set the rules of the game, right? There's a guy named Milton Friedman. He talked a lot about this. He was really eloquent about talking about it more than I'll ever be. But like, we've gotten to like such a place where like all the rule makers are also the people that are selling the sausages, right? So, they just write rules that benefit them, and so like you get this creep into like all these different aspects of our society, and like I get it, like I get why people feel like there is no out, right? But like if you accept that and you don't do anything about it, like well, you're accepting that and not doing anything about it, and like I just can't live that way. But
you got to create your own destiny.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
So speaking of law, what was it like working with, when I met you, Governor Ernie Fletcher?
Governor Fletcher.
I know you expanded rural recovery housing, right?
Yep. So we operated under a grant called the Rural Center of Excellence in Recovery Housing, which was put out through HRSA. A lot of people don't know HRSA is the Health Resources Services Administration. So like everybody knows the federal government's big, but like within Health and Human Services, which I guess RFK's, he's the secretary of now, HRSA, that entire branch is responsible for rural America. So, which is like half the country, but a whole lot of land. Half the population, a lot of land. And so like they actually do all kinds of great grant programs. But I mean, that job opportunity was a huge turning point in my life, and actually like really endearing and special to me. So the program that I went through where I got sober, the Moorhead Inspiration Center, there's like 22 of them across the state now. They're all part of what's called the Recovery Kentucky program. So, and that whole initiative was started when Ernie Fletcher was governor of Kentucky. Him and a guy named Don Ball, who had a big heart. He'd been really successful in real estate, has a beautiful horse farm here in Lexington. Governor Fletcher asked him to be the head of the Kentucky Housing Corporation. And then it was right in that transition from like when meth was real big into opiates here in Kentucky. And all this is before the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. So, they got together along with several other people there in the state government, and they created this program that didn't rely on insurance that could give people an opportunity to recover. It was replicated off the model that was developed at the Healing Place in Louisville, Kentucky. And so they built all these centers across the state, and then I got to go through one, and then I worked there, and then we built a new one in Grayson, Kentucky, and I went over to work there. And a couple people from the Fletcher group, when they first started, a guy named Grant and a gal named Lori, they came to ask me like how the housing component worked, like between the HUD funds and the Kentucky Housing Corporation and the low-income housing tax credit, like all this government stuff, which, just for a second, like, I want to encourage people in the audience, like, government is complicated, and it does complicated things. And, it's worth taking the time to try and understand how and why it works before just assuming that it doesn't. And don't get me wrong, a lot of times it doesn't. But a lot of times it does, and it can still produce good things. And that's what Governor Fletcher did. So, me, all these years later, some dude that he never met, never thought about, I go through this program, end up working there, and now I get the opportunity to work for the guy, for like one of the founding fathers of Recovery Kentucky. It was like this huge moment of like just gratitude and like feeling of like destiny for me. He's such an incredible dude, man. Like, so he was.
Yeah, I met him at the RX Summit in Atlanta.
Yeah. Did you get to talk to him much?
Yeah, he seemed like a good guy.
Dude, he's so smart. So like, he was a congressman, but before he was a congressman, so he was an Air Force fighter pilot, and he's a medical doctor, and he's been a congressman, and he's been a governor, and now
overachieving.
And now he turned around and did the Fletcher Group. But I mean, you know, guys like him, and you might know who's that sports coach that was really famous for like after every game, like he would be down there on the court and like he would sweep the floor himself, or maybe it was before the game. You've heard the story though.
Yeah, I know you're talking. I don't know why I can't think of it.
He might be able to find it. I don't know.
Pull that up. It's got me curious. So we're gonna type in who sweeps the floors after the games. That's very well known.
But like he was like a national level coach.
Right. I know it. The
I
second
think
we
for
pull it up, I'll be
basketball,
like, yeah.
Yeah. I suck at sports ball.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it rolls with.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to know his name because, like, I think about this guy all
After
the time.
basketball games. Yeah, there you go.
No, famous coach. You got to add famous coach in there.
There you go. Famous coach who cleaned the court after basketball games. I know the second it posts, I'll be like, are you serious? Like, I knew that. Don Meyer, men's college basketball coach in NCAA history?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I always, as a kid, watched, like, all pros, so.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, now I don't feel as bad.
Well, I mean, I'm
I
a Kentucky
definitely know who he is.
native.
Right.
Like, what is the
Right.
NBA? I don't even know
Right.
what.
I was hoping when I got out here they were going to move a team. I'm like, what are we doing, man? We don't got a basketball, baseball, or football team. What are we doing?
I mean,
Throw one in Lexington or Louisville.
We got college ball, baby.
We got UK, baby.
But no, like, guys like him, guys like Governor Fletcher, you know, like, these people with just, like, the servant's heart, man, that, like, they just don't stop. Like, they actively stay a part of the stream of life. Like, that's just, like, that's what I want to do, man. That's why I do what I do.
So you also own Sober Livings. Or you did, right?
Yeah, so when my grandfather on my dad's side passed, I think maybe I'd been sober about 5 or 6 years. I was blown away, man, because, like, I get a call from an attorney that, like, I'm an executor in his will. And, like, you know, this man saw me in the madness. And so, like, you know, when that responsibility fell in my lap, like, it was heavy for me, but not in a bad way. Like, I was just so honored that, like, he would trust me with that duty. Because my mom's always been, like, really sick. Like, she has severe mental illness. She has schizophrenia since I was about 5. But, you know, so, like, we execute his estate. Like, I get my part of the inheritance, and I owed a guy $10,000 as an amends. So, like, I paid that guy. I bought myself a really big computer. I put some of it in savings, and then I had enough left, and I decided that I would buy another house and I would lease it to a group called Oxford House. So Oxford House is like the oldest organized form of recovery housing or sober living that exists in the country. I first came into contact with them maybe 10 years ago, helped them connect with a landlord, which got the first Oxford House in Moorhead. Now there's like 7. So there's like dudes and girls, like, and it's so important because, like, treatment will get you medically and clinically and probably mentally stable. But then, like, if you don't have, like, a recovery conducive environment to live in after that, a lot of people don't make it.
Right.
And that's why it looks like there's just this endless loop, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can build out a continuum of care that actually works.
Right.
And, like, there's more and more evidence piling up for that. But so, you know, one, he developed houses. Like, after he got hurt on the fire department, he was on the Lexington Fire Department for like 17 or 18 years. He fell off the truck. He got hurt. But, like, he turned around and, like, took the money that he had saved and, like, built out this whole neighborhood in Harrodsburg. And so, like, watching his example, And this man could barely read. I mean, he was also from Knox County, ironically, but not the Barberville area. There was an old coal camp town on the edge of the county past a place called Artemis that was called KJ. It didn't even have a proper name. It was just called KJ. And that's where he actually grew up. Went to Knox County High School, too. And I remember him telling a story about he would mop the floors every night, every school night, for a quarter a week so that he could help put food on the table for like his brothers and sisters. I mean, he maybe read at a 5th grade level, but so he ended up developing like this entire neighborhood, and like all that legacy, like I ended up with part of this inheritance. And then of course recovery is part of my story. So I bought this house in Grayson, and Oxford rented it. And I got to name it. I called it Oxford House Gethsemane. And since then, it's grown into a couple houses. I brought in a business partner a little bit later, and I sold half of that first house to him and then cycled that capital back out to be a partial owner of a second house with him. And, I just plan on continuing to do that. I mean, it's pretty, it provides me a return. The equity builds in the house. I just let the money accrue in an account, and the purpose of that account is like when it reaches sufficient value, is like I just want to do another one, because right. like you don't have to use capitalism to only be good to yourself. There are right. so many ways to use right. capitalism to actually make the world a better place. And I wish more people appreciated that, because there's a lot of benefit to that. Because if you only want to try and do good in the world through institutions or government, you will never get to be the one who defines what that good is. You'll never get to be the one that gets to write what those rules are. But if you take that philanthropic route, if you're smart about your own money and you use your money to generate good in the world, you get to determine what that good is, and you get to write the rules. And there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, we'll have to partner together more too. So now that we got the Fourth Dimension Treatment Center, we always need legit warm handoffs, like you're saying. So I only want to send somebody where I know it's good. Yep. I know that model works, and when they leave with us, they're going to be sober and have worked all the steps and be pointed in the right direction. Give them every tool to succeed. So that'll be awesome. So you were also one of 40 people like myself, selected in between age 21 and 40 to be on Bright Leadership. What were you, 2020?
Yep, class of 2020.
That was 2022. So
best class ever.
Yeah, 2022 was by far. So let's tell them about what's Bright Leadership.
Man, so there's an organization called Leadership Kentucky, and I think they've been around since the mid-'70s, but they're dedicated to the professional development, entrepreneurial spirit, and philanthropic duty of strong leadership and success, among Kentuckians. And back in 2019, because the first class was 2019, they got a grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission, combined with some very meaningful philanthropic funds from Kentucky Power and Whitaker Bank. I know there were some other donors too, so if they ever hear this, I don't want them to feel like I left them out on purpose.
We didn't leave you out.
We didn't. Oh, there's the thing. But so, they created this leadership program that was specific for, young professionals, like you said, 20 to 40, who lived and or worked in a Kentucky ARC county, which is, again, Central Appalachia as a region, which is Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, parts of Western Virginia, and parts of Northeastern Tennessee, that is the heart of the opioid crisis, like from Portsmouth down to like Junction City, that whole area. So, when I applied and I got accepted, like it was super meaningful to me because like at that point in my life, I didn't see myself as a leader. Like I gotten the job at the Fletcher Group, but like I hadn't internalized like this viewpoint of myself as like somebody that could really like try and help change the world. I had that desire, but I didn't really see that about myself. So, but after going through that program, man, and like having these people that had nothing to do with recovery land, like people that were successful in business, successful professionals, having them invest in me for 6 months and let me be a part of what they were doing and what they were trying to create, which was a brighter future for Eastern Kentucky, because they wanted to build that high caliber talent in the hopes that it stayed, just like you did, man, just like I've done. I was talking to a couple of the facilitators the other day. I think they've had something like 276 people go through the program so far, and like there's only like 5 out of that have left the region. So you've got like multiple cohorts of like young people that were invested in, that were told like, you can harness the future of this place. You can build a brighter economic outlook. We can move past the devastation that, these pharmaceutical companies and distributors, exploited from our region. That same theme again, man, that commodification of human beings.
Well, you want to talk about like a hope shot. I think it's ironic that, I got hit by Purdue Pharmaceuticals, but in a different way in the Northeast in New York. Yeah. And then God brings me to the opioid epidemic to get sober.
Yeah.
Like boots on the ground. This is where it happened. This is where I'm going to unleash you, where nobody.
And you stayed.
Go nuts.
Yeah. And you stayed, man.
Yeah.
And not only did you stay, like you're investing, like you're making it better. Like it's a special place with a long history, man. That concept of commodification of human beings, human exploitation. It goes back to like the coal companies doing that in Eastern Kentucky too. And it's just a toxic model, man. Like it's, you have to provide, it's really good and important to provide material value, but you also have to provide spiritual value. And I think that's one of the most positive things about like our generation, right? Like we demand that. Like we demand it of everything that we touch. Like there has to be a level of meaning that is beyond like this immediate material satisfaction. I think that's one of the things that millennials do really well. Like we've made that a requirement of the world. Now it ends up getting commodified too, right? And like packaged and sold as some kind of bullshit, but at least the intention's there.
Yeah, we definitely have the right intentions. And I think it's cool too, like our people exactly like our age, how we got to grow up with the normal childhood, come home when the lights go off, everybody playing together, not worrying about crazy things happening, and building character. We're doing stuff by 8 or 9 that people 18 are doing now.
Yeah.
But we also got to grow up as teenagers when the internet hit and adapt to that and be boots on the ground first on this thing like AOL, like the long dial up all the way to look where we're at now. Dude, so we got to ride the whole train.
We did, and like it's funny you bring that up. Like I've thought about this a lot, and like I'm trying to like channel my inner like Joe Rogan vibes, right? Like I've got this opportunity, like
the GITT Up Podcast experience, baby.
Absolutely, because like I've got like these theories that wash around in my head. Like I think it puts our generation in like such an important place to like bridge the future, right? Because like we were the last analog generation. I was having a long conversation with my wife earlier today where she was like trying to explain to me, like my son who's 13, he might as well like have grown up 200 years past me and her. Because like for him, born in 2012, none of the analog world existed anymore. It's always been the internet. But so
and
like
the iPhone and just everything we know now off the rip.
yeah, yeah, the internet everywhere all the time, like that Bo Burnham song. but so like for us, man, like we're the only people that can whisper backwards and talk forwards. You know, we're like that bridge generation because like we had the experience growing up in the analog world, but we're native to the digital world because it hit when we were like teenagers, so we were still young enough to like get it to an extent. My son bothered me forever. He wanted like an Oculus headset, and like I just kept saying no, like over and over and over again. And I would think to myself like, he'll never be in reality again. And it's funny, when I actually finally got it for him, all he does is play with his buddies from school, and like maybe for like an hour a day, and then like he goes back to doing his other stuff. And when I was reflecting on that, I was like, oh my God, like I'm the boomer now. I was like, oh no, the new technology, it's going to ruin my child. And like, you know, this is classic them. But, you know, in the workplace, in politics, in society in general, I think that like us millennials have a really important role to play in trying to negotiate the future between like the people that came before us and the people that are coming after us. And to me, that's really important because that's not the narrative you hear people talk about. You get the okay boomer joke. And like, I just find it hard to believe that like all the people in this country like just have zero value for their parents and their grandparents or their great grandparents if they were lucky enough to lose them. And if they did, they're just wrong. They're
Right.
just like, they're selfish and short sighted. Like I'll just like call
And no
it out.
morals or family code or just,
Nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
it's crazy.
I mean, people aren't perfect, and the expectation of anybody to be perfect, like, you know, it's the same attitude I take towards my alcoholism, right? Like if the whole world had to quit drinking for me to get better, I'd have been in really poor shape, right? Well, like if the whole world has to be perfect for you to bother to play a role in it, like you're the one that's wrong. Like it's not them.
So what do you think? I could sit here and talk all night, bro. We'd end up being like Rogan. Hopefully when I get to that point, we can just like sit down and just rock for like 3 hours at a clip. Because that's what he does. They're like 2.5, 3 hours.
I know, they just wax philosophical.
Yeah. So what's next for you personally or professionally in the next few years? What's next on the Gene radar?
Oh man, a couple things, I guess. So, so back to Bright real quick. Like I met a guy. There were two dudes that were in my class, and they were both awesome. One of them was Jonathan Schell, who's the state agricultural commissioner now, and the other one is a guy from Bell County, Adam Bowling.
Right.
He works as their state representative, and you know we had to do like a class project thing, and like they wanted to create like a program to like help communities at a whole community level like understand better how they could address the devastation of the opioid crisis. And that eventually evolved into this project called Recovery Ready Communities, which I think we can show as I kind of prattle on about it for a second. But I mean, so like I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to participate in this program. I've served on the advisory board since 2021 and was lucky enough to just get reappointed for another 5-year term. But so, you know, communities can take basically like an inventory of all their prevention, treatment, and recovery assets. And then if they score high enough based on the curriculum that the advisory committee set, they can get certified as being a recovery-ready community. And here's kind of a map of who all's done it so far. We actually met earlier today, and we approved 4 more counties, which brings us up to a total of 35 counties, but also accounts for approximately 50% of the population of the state of Kentucky. And so, like, this has been such a cool experience, and that combined with the work that I did with Fletcher Group has kind of, like, led me to the next iteration, I think, of this concept. So what I want to start to do is, like, so this does a really good job, like, doing, like, a 2D map of this environment, right? Like, you can lay it flat on a table, and you can say, I've got this, and this is where they are, right? So I want to take it to the next level. I want to make this map 3-dimensional. So, like, I want to start to try and measure and figure out, like, what is the actual strength of connection between these nonprofits, these institutions, these community groups, and how fluidly can individuals move between the different nodes in the network to build their personal recovery capital. Because if you have a community that has all the right things, but there's no connective tissue between them, there's no relationship between those institutions. You know, human beings as individuals, we thrive by having relationships with each other. And currently, a lot of times our nonprofits and our institutions, they don't have meaningful relationships with each other. They're in these silos. So, like, what would the world look like if these things that we entrust our tax dollars to had stronger, deeper, more meaningful relationships with each other? Would we get better outcomes? Would the taxpayer get a better bang for their buck? And so that's what I want to try and figure out. And that's what I'm going to spend the next 5 years doing.
Nice. Well, let me know when you find that answer.
I'll try.
I'll support you.
Well, thank you. And then on the other side of it, my best friend, I met him going through the recovery program. He runs an electrical contracting company. And, you know, a few years ago, like, he realized he had grown to the point where, like, he needed some help. And so, like, I help him as basically like his virtual COO. And, like, honestly, like, if I ever feel like I finished my work in recovery, I think I want to go all in on that. And, like, I want to get my bankroll, but I want to get my bankroll so that, like, I can be that philanthropist.
Right.
Like, me and him talk about it all the time. Like, our fantasy is, like, if we ever do make, like, millions and millions of dollars, we want to set up, like, a trust and have, like, a recovery center that was the same way that, like, when we went through.
Right.
That, you know, it doesn't have any of these other masters. It can just be true to itself, right? And philanthropy is how you do that.
Exactly. It's like you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. If I make a few $1 billion and I'm not blessing other people with it, what am I really doing, right?
Right.
That takes away the whole purpose, passion, service work, all that stuff, and really I'm just a selfish billionaire miser.
Yeah, and it's so much more fun when you're, like, it's just more fun when you're, like, blessing others and making the world a better place. You sleep good.
Exactly. And you can't put a price on sleeping good, especially where we came from.
No.
I remember many sleepless nights for years, bro. And then having to take something to wake up and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Gotta get up.
Yeah.
Gotta go
medically
down.
regulated sleep and
Yeah.
wake. So what do you want listeners to take away from the podcast and your story today and give them a hope shot?
To thine own self be true. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you don't know who you are, do the work and figure it out. Because if you figure out who you are, you're going to figure out what you really care about, and then, you know, you're going to find your place in the world, and you're going to find the value that you bring to other people's lives. And when you get to that point, when you unlock that peace, when you wake up most days, I'm not going to say every day because that's not true, but when you wake up most days and, like, you get to the end of your day and you sit back and you reflect for a moment and you're like, I was a force for good in the world. I wasn't destroying things. I wasn't sitting on the sidelines. And that can look big. That can look little. It can look like anything, you know. Like, I had somebody tell me once, a big mentor of mine is a guy named Tony White. Still a dear, dear friend too. But, like, I had somebody tell me one time that I made a really, really bad Tony White, but I made a really, really good Gene Detherage. And, that changed me. So, like, my hope shot for the audience would be, like, you make a really, really terrible whoever or whatever thing it is you've got on a pedestal that you think you're not. But you are 100% unequivocally the best whoever you are that ever existed. Everybody's unique. Nobody's special. And you got to go out there and get it, baby.
Get up. So if you're listening, get up and do something different, because you can get anything you want in life. And sometimes changing where you're at is good, but you can never change yourself. So be the best version of yourself and not try and be anybody else.
Yep.
I love it. So, Gene, if someone wants to connect with you, collaborate, or learn more about your work, where's the best place for them to reach you? Give them all the plugs.
1,000%. LinkedIn is probably my best. Gene Detherage. There's not a lot of us. We die easy. But you'll see the mustache on there. It's hard to mistake. That's unequivocally the best place to reach me digitally. So please look me up, follow my journey. And if you're in recovery, come be a part of, man.
Check him out, man. He's doing big things in the community. Yo, and I always give my guests some GITT apparel for coming on the show.
Waiting for this.
And we don't play around with the clothes, bro. Coop. Right into the shot. We got the perfect for today. Inspire to be better.
Ooh, that's on brand for me. Yeah.
Get motivated. Live your best life. No regrets, baby.
No regrets.
If it is a little bit big, just throw her in the dryer.
No, it's good.
But if you want any cool clothes like you see me wearing and my man has in his hand, check out GITTLIVE.com if you want to hear more inspirational, motivational comeback stories and just other CEOs, entrepreneurs like ourselves. Like, subscribe, and share this, man. Comment. Check out the YouTube channel. Come be a part of it. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.